All right, let's work on some lighting for this. And I know it seems like, hey, we just shaded this guy. Maybe we should have done the lighting first. And no, I don't necessarily think that's the case. At least how I'm taking an approach to this. This is kind of some of our finale kind of glows and things like that, or just really like hot spots in some cases. And then I think in a moment you'll see what I'm talking about. I've got in our parts library a couple symbols already created for you. If you were to double click inside of here, you can see it's just a white circle, and the real magic, I guess, is happening with the blend effects here. So the blending is set to add, and then it's just simply kind of glowed and blurred at the same time. So the glow color is set to white, and obviously I blurred the original shape. So if you were to take this off of it, you would just kind of see that it's the glow actually does more when we have a color on here, but we'll leave this for now. And one kind of cool thing we can do is sort of emphasize the background a little bit, and we don't really have a sun source inside of here, and nor do I really think we need it. But if you wanted to kind of put a sort of a hot spot in the sky, right, what you could do is take that color, and again, this kind of all works because of the blending being set to add, and sort of blow out sort of a region like this, right? And what's nice about it is I think that it goes back and it sort of emphasizes something that we covered up before, which is the piping and some of the detail in that part of the lake. I wouldn't do this in many places. I would probably just stick to one place only. And the reason I said is if you just do it everywhere, it kind of loses the effect, and really then you're almost just kind of adding this weird kind of white glow around everything. So I would stick to just one place for that. But now that you've got this, let's go and set the glow to red. All right, so it's going to add a little bit of a red hue around things, and in places that can look pretty good, I think. So for example, you could do something like that. Now that's actually two of them right there. All right, so that's our first one. And actually, you don't need to duplicate. I mean, you don't need to double them up necessarily to kind of toggle the effect. You can see that the alpha really just does exactly that. And a little red tone here and there could add quite a lot to this. I think that's a nice place for it. Let's try it just a little bit. I don't necessarily want to kind of blow out this inner circle right here, and that's what the add could potentially do, is something that we don't want. Oh, this is nice here. Check this out. Let's bring it over here, and I'm going to take the alpha down to about 50%. So we've got a little bit of a shine on our sword. For some reason I do really like that with the red around it, but we can add a little bit more to this. Watch this. We'll just copy this shape, and then let's take all the filters off. So remove that one. Remove the blur. Now I'm just left with a circle. Right, and I'm going to take the blending off of it as well. Do a little smaller. Do another one over here. Oh, anybody see where I'm going with this? We're making a lens flare. Obviously, the circle is just really wide and squat. You got something like that, and then you could do another one. These very thin circles. If I can turn it, might be a little hard to turn. There it is. So something like that. But that one I'll just make a bit smaller. Let's go ahead and make this into a symbol. We'll just call it lens flare. You could even try giving a little bit of extra shine to the head. Emphasize that a bit. I'm going to take the alpha down some though. And ultimately, these effects would probably look better inside of well, no, they might not look better, but they would belong inside of these symbols that you've already created, because if you were going to slightly kind of move the head a little bit or something like that, you would want most likely you'd want this to go along with it. I think it might be it could be interesting to leave some of them in place and then kind of float them up and down a little bit. I really would just want to see this, animate this guy breathing just a little bit. I know he's not going to be able to move much more than that. So yeah, it's a careful balance of adding these in, but subtly and not overdoing it, because I don't know. I think if you just go along here and you do too many, it's going to seem, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, whoa, that guy's shiny. So let's back out of that. Now let me just move the timeline out of the way so we can kind of see more of this. And actually, I should give you guys a view of the filters. Now, I've said many times that we're not going to do too much with filters. At least I don't want to. But there's not really a good replacement vector-wise for a blur. Okay, so if you did want to blur something, you're going to have to go through here, right? And I tend to always set the quality up to high, right? And then I think it's best to go subtle, all right? Maybe even taking the X down to 1 and then the Y to just 2. And the reason I'm doing that for this leg is, well, in particular, it kind of looks like this leg is moving, so this could be interpreted as a motion blur as well as just a kind of standard blur, like that leg is further off beyond the focal point of our camera. So if you do this, then you can also consider maybe doing a little bit of the leg as well. And I'll go ahead and just grab, oops, didn't mean to grab that part. Oh, let's grab, okay, I've got those. And I think if we were going to do this, I could also grab that part of the leg. All right, so I've got all that stuff. I've got all that stuff. All right. So let's blur that again. The same settings. Just 1, 2. I think is okay. This one I might blur a little bit more. That's not much. All right. And if anything, it almost kind of emphasizes this line right here with the lens flare, and makes this arm feel a bit more forward. I mean, anything should feel a little bit more forward than this leg now, but I think in particular that area benefits from it. And then up here, if you wanted, you could always just put in another little blur back this way. I guess by now I should have copied these filters to the clipboard because I'm using them a lot. And I don't think I'd really worry too much about anything else. Another thing you could play with is going over here and putting in a drop shadow, an inner shadow though. So if that's getting cut off, you want it to be inner, and then make this white, and then just take this down to, well, let's bring the quality up. Let's take the blurring down to just 1 and 1 and 1. And I would take the distance down to 2, maybe 1, and then just play around with the strength on it. Okay, so just gonna take a look at it as I kind of spin through here what it's doing. It's not really even doing that much, but it's I kind of like that it emphasizes this gear right here, because without that you don't see it at all, and that just it's kind of a happy accident of me including that gear as part of this symbol that I made. And you can see it's just mostly that kind of inner mid-region stuff. So we'll go ahead and keep that. And in some other places, like maybe over here on the or maybe within here on this one, you could consider doing that same thing. And then in which case it probably makes more sense to go over here to copy all filters, and then you can play around with just seeing how some of that looks. So for example, this, lock up all those other layers except for what's on my original. Well, I didn't name that one, but there's my original art. Right? Or maybe not. Is it right here? Okay. So then I'll just paste in that filter. I know it's getting cut off. Hard to see. Did it make any difference at all? Maybe not. But and then if you want, you know, you can maybe get away with something similar for a little extra dimension. Watch this. Inner shadow, and let's spin it around. Okay, so we're still conforming to our light being up from up here, and I'll just bump out the distance so you can see where that's being applied, right? And then from here you can go take the strength down, right? So you get something like that happening, just a little bit extra. And of course you could always play around with just taking the blur X and Y down a lot, and then you get kind of that hard line around it. But I think for this one, if we're just gonna, I don't know, maybe do, it's almost like a similar thing to what we did in the previous video about adding gradients. So it's subtle, and I like that. All right, so consider that as well, and I'll meet you guys back here for the next video.